Are you ready to breathe some new life into your character in D&D? Well, if you are, you're in the right place, because in this video, I'm going to share a few tips that's going to take your character creation to that next level so you can get super creative with the character that you're creating. Join me as we dive deep into the ideas of character creation and spend just a few moments together to really make an impact on your next character that you create. Hi, my name is Remy, and this is my role-playing realm. We are always here talking about cool ways that you can take your D&D game to the next level. Really just give it that extra oomph to really get it there and get it ready. So let's get into it. The first thing I want you to think about is when you are creating your character and you choose their archetype or their class, why are they that class? You can come up with like a whole list of different reasons on why someone would be a certain class. A rogue, for instance, they could be a thief, 100%. That's the cliche, right? But they could also just be like the quiet one and always very sneaky and like wants to get somewhere and do something with it. They could just be the one that really likes to sneak up on people. They could have been, their parents were rogues, so they felt that they should be a rogue too, and then they go into a multi-class into something else down the road because that's actually not their passion. Sometimes our lives force on us archetypes that we really don't want. So this is kind of a cool way to play that out also. And not just with a rogue, but maybe a paladin. Maybe a paladin doesn't become a paladin on purpose, but they were thinking they would just be like a guardian of a certain area, and they wanted to be a fighter, but then they became more of a paladin because they saw the value in what paladins did. Or you could think about anything, but as long as it can show your character has more depth than what a normal character would, it's probably going to be beneficial to the character creation when you're thinking about this archetype and the class that you choose for your next character. Next, we're talking motivations. So, what motivates your character to do what they're doing? We kind of talked about it a little bit in the last part, but what motivates your character? What drives them? What happened in their past that pushes them forward? Do they just live a normal life and maybe now is their time? They can actually prove themselves. They can finally show everyone how good they actually are at this certain thing, and they want to just get better and better and better. What fears do they have? Do they hate certain thing, like maybe it's a spider, and then so the first time you ever combat a spider, you run. Your character doesn't have to be the hero to begin with. A lot of stories and fables are told in a way that makes someone look heroic when in the actual moment maybe they had a little bit more cowardice than they'd like to admit. And that's totally okay. That makes your character deep. That makes your character cool. And honestly, I kind of like to hear that story more than just hearing the story about the guy who wins all the time. Maybe they have a desire for money or for riches, and it's rooted in their past of growing up very poor. That's relatable, right? That can be instantly role played out in a way that is easy, because it's hard not to grow up in wherever you are and see people with money and not want that, no matter what, where you're playing from. I guarantee you see other people with money and that's kind of desirable. It makes sense, right? So playing that out in game, and like how far would you push yourself as a character in this world to get money? What would you do? Would you go face a crazy monstrous beast to get a few coin, or would you lean back and maybe let your fears play into that? Think about those things and write, this idea and story in your head for who your character is going to be. Overall, understanding their motivations will add depth to your character that you can access within the game and roleplay out amongst your friends around the table. So plan some reasons and motivations into your character. Next, get some visual inspiration for your character. One of my favorite places to go is Pinterest. Yeah, you wouldn't find me on Pinterest every day, but the amazing artwork on there with D&D characters is phenomenal. So go check it out, honestly, there, and then check anywhere else. A good Google search away to find some motivations of your own for, like, visually, how do I want my character to look? How do I want my character to cast magic? What color is the magic that they cast? I've said this in a previous video, by the way, and you can go check that out, but like, when you're creating your character, think about the whys behind what they do and look like. And then I wrote one time into my backstory, just a quick little story here. I created a character. His name is Jakale. He has basically abyssal magic healed him when he was a kid, and I worked this out with my DM, but it healed him, but it made his druid family not really want to embrace his power anymore because it made the abyssal marks that were left on his arms and like kind of veins glow whenever he casts magic. So they glow when it casts magic, and then the magic is kind of a green, and the fire he plays with as a druid is green. And I just was like, that would be cool if that's kind of a reason he wasn't accepted in his previous, friend groups, but now he's in this group, and maybe they'll accept him, or maybe he'll be more ashamed because he's been taught to be ashamed of this magic he has inside of him. So it's like, where does that come from? Think about that. And embrace visual inspiration. I went to Pinterest and I found things that might look like Jakale, and I put that into the DM's eyes. I showed him my phone. I'm like, hey, this is kind of what I envision him to look like. And then his veins will glow when he casts for the very first time in front of these people, which he'll be kind of ashamed of doing. And then that's a great way to kind of role play that out and kind of force a role play when your character wants to run away from the group because they used magic in front of them for the first time, when their class, even if someone's metagaming, they know they're a druid, but ultimately they're not a druid until they really have to be, because they're afraid of casting magic. So it's like, what else can you play to? What strengths can you play to make that really awesome? So just something to think about. I hope that makes sense, to ultimately get a visual inspiration and go from there. Next, embody a quirk or a flaw about your character. Maybe your character always lies, tells lies to everyone. They just or they like to play jokes on people, and they're like, oh, there's something on your head, or just something like that, that basically the party can find a way to work around, but ultimately it's maybe a flaw. A flaw is a bad thing, right? A flaw is something that can disrupt interaction between someone important and that. And it's like, how do I navigate this now that I have a friend who has this sort of like a deficiency? Not necessarily a deficiency, but just a thing about them that other people find distracting. So I watched this movie about this school teacher who wanted to be a school teacher, but he had Tourette's syndrome, and the Tourette's basically would be very interrupting, right? Of course. But he was so motivated and driven to teach that ultimately he didn't let that stand in his way. At first, was he told no? Yes, a whole bunch. But a quirk or a flaw is something about your character that may seem kind of abrasive at first, or not really, easily accepted, but then other people will begin to accept that as a part of you once they see your true value. And that's something awesome to write into the story here. Also, maybe your character could, talk out of the side of their mouth, could talk in a different way. Maybe they don't like to talk very much, so they only answer questions with 1 or 2 words, or just a small phrase, never elaborate, never go into detail until maybe their friends like really pull it out of them, or maybe they have to do something like that. That's a great way to get all the people at your table involved, and then your character could advance and open up to those people. So you're talkative around just your friends, but when someone new enters, then maybe it's a little off. I used to be this way in real life. I used to not talk to anybody except for my friends, and then ultimately I found a way out of my shell eventually. But just living that out in your character is really awesome, to be able to have someone else learn that in the game through your character's development. Really awesome idea if you want to include that. Next, if your DM allows it, and they should, embrace multiclassing. Multiclassing is definitely something that would happen. One of the things I had to do as Drakale the Druid is, I don't think he would have leveled up in Druid when he feels ashamed. So I multiclassed into a rogue because I had a high dexterity, would commonly throw a knife. Makes sense, right? I multiclassed into that to be able to be a benefit, because we all leveled up, right? But I'm not going to level up in something I don't use. So what am I doing now that my character could level in? So I went ahead and leveled in Druid instead of I leveled in my Druid in a level of Rogue instead of Druid, because that was more how he was acting in the party. And so I was like, DM, is this okay? And we talked it out, and he's like, yeah, that makes sense. He's like, you sure? I was like, I mean, it just makes sense, right? He's like, okay. So that's what we're doing. So that's what we did. So just think about that. Talk to your DM, of course, and more than likely your DM is going to be open to whatever, creativity you bring to them, especially if you have a reason like this behind it. But embrace multiclassing. Cool stories are told when you have multiple awesome things about you, and sometimes one class just won't define a true hero. So think about it. It's awesome to have those really high skills, and everything once you get to those levels. But by multiclassing, you can also gain some really cool abilities that you never would have had had you not branched off and just kind of went along with what your character is actually doing in the game. So with that knowledge in mind, I set you off on your course. Embark on your journey to creating a better character the next time you create a character. Or even work this into your current character that you're playing. How can you take these tips back to your table today? Think about that. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on the video. We'll see you next time here on Remy's Role-Playing Realm. Thank you.